Really important. Such an unusual set of circumstances we found ourselves in, just the amount of hockey we played over last years, but that you have back-to-back years, four nations, and Olympic break. We found now we got 10 guys over that played at a really high level, so they get a few days rest. So those guys won't have as much as a physical break. The change sometimes is as good as a rest. We'll count on that for those guys, and then for the guys here, almost every one of them is playing significantly bigger minutes than they ever had in their career. So that's an unusual cost for those guys. When you look at what AJ Greer's done in terms of minutes over that time. So the rest will be really impactful for them. And, for our goalies as well. They've seen a few more pucks than they normally see. It's a lot of hockey for them.
Looking at the injured guys, Jonesy, Gadja, like a lot of guys. But is anyone coming back first two games out? Are any of those guys ready at this point?
I don't know. We had 9 guys out in the Tampa game, but we would expect Ekblad, Rodriguez, and based on what we know of where Brad is, those 3 guys, there's an expectation that they would be back. I don't have anybody else back for the opening game, but excuse me, the 2 closest guys, maybe 3 closest guys, would be Kulikov, Nozick, and Gadjevich that were on the ice today. They'll go probably non-contact this week, and maybe get released for contact in and around the Toronto game, which would keep them out of those games. But if they can get through the week, then somewhere on the road trip, there'll be a chance they come back. I'm not trying to evade the question. I just don't know the answer to a lot of them. They've been off an awfully long time. So we do need to get them to a certain level of confidence before they go out in these games.
And we saw Terry left the Tampa game. It looks fine.
Yeah, Terry's fine. He went through practice. He got tested a few days earlier pretty hard. Toby Enstrom as well. That's another guy that was out of that game. Not Toby, wrong player. Sorry, different era. Toby Bjornfort is good to go too as well.
But did the break really help Tarasov? It looked pretty.
Yeah, we were worried about it.
Like that.
We were worried about it. He and Toby, those were longer than 1 week injuries, so they needed all of it to get back. Yeah.
And in looking at moving ahead, 25 games starting Thursday, a sprint to the finish. Last year with the 4 Nation guys, you kind of.
Yeah.
Can you afford to do that now?
Probably not. Not in terms of back-to-back games. Everybody plays all the games. We're in a way tighter race than we were last year at this time. That one last year wasn't as much about they had so many miles on them. Like going into that last week, we still had 5 or 6 guys playing that were injured. So we were just trying to take the most injured guy out. I guess rest was in fact what we were doing, but they weren't healthy players we were taking on. They all had something they were dealing with. So we just thought, we couldn't look at the playoffs with these guys injured as realistic. We needed to get them a little bit healthier.
You've been looking at the medal games. You've got Finland.
Yeah.
If guys come back with some medals, do they have some kind of jump when they get back?
The biggest advantage that they have is that there's a cost to not getting 3 weeks off, and then there's also advantage, right? They don't need 5 days to get warm. All they need is rest. So from the games today and tomorrow, there's a very real chance that none of them hit the ice till the morning skate. We need to build some days off for them, but they're not going to have to warm their hands up. They'll get that done in the warm-up, and they're all high-end pros. So most of those guys, I think Uvis and Sandus we may see on the ice here a day before, but we need to get them some rest.
How much of the tournament have you watched, and what was it like watching?
I watched quite a bit of it. Really interesting, right? You're cheering for your guys. It's tough when they're playing against each other. You're so much more attached to the player than the team. And you're just, Panthers were all over that Finn-Canada game, all over it, good and bad, but certainly involved. They didn't sit on the sidelines. They came to play. So that part's been really fun to watch.
And then tomorrow, just looking at the Canada-US game.
Yeah, so for coaches anyway, we got 3 medals hanging in the balance on both sides because Bill Zito and Teddy Richards are part of the U.S. squad with Matthew, and we've got the 3 guys playing on the Canadian side. So I'm just hoping that when they all get off the plane, there's 7 medals. That's what we're cheering for. But that'd be a pretty good haul for a hockey team if you could have that many guys feel it. The Canadian U.S. team, I'm not sure that the silver goes on the wall. I think both teams are. This is just such a big game for hockey. I mean, there hasn't been a game, my game like this on the world stage, in 40 years. I mean, this is just incredible. So, yeah, we'll practice tomorrow. Everybody will get in early. Cancel the team meeting because it's going to be right around the third period. And if we get on the ice late, it's because it went into overtime. So that'll take precedent.
And as a coach, looking at USA versus Canada, just from
Yeah.
anybody have the edge, or is it as tight as we think it is?
Yeah. I think the Four Nations tells you that it was, right? Both tight games. Different styles of hockey. And some of that's just cultural, the way they're brought up, the style of game that they play. But it's so much closer now in terms of style than ever. Elite players on both teams, but there's not near as much kind of maybe risk in their game. They're both making smart plays at the line. They're not. I think they're both confident enough that they feel they can push their game. So I think maybe when you saw Canada and Finland play, it's a 2-0 lead. The Finns kind of went into that bit of that defensive shell because they felt they were going to need to. And certainly in the first 10 minutes of that second period, Canada got going. There's not much left to do but defend. There won't be one of these two teams going to either say, we got to put all the risk into every play and hope something breaks for us, or we got to sit back because we can't handle the other team and we can't make a defensive mistake. There's lots of confidence on both teams. We got world-class goaltending. So dynamic from the back end in terms of how they move the puck, and then the guys up front, either incredible speed, usually speed, skill, and they've got all the pieces there.
And looking at this break, just from a coach, from your standpoint, was it a nice?
Yeah,
Recharge the batteries a little bit, because it looked like
Yeah.
you were pressing it a little bit.
Well,
going in.
No, I feel that we had gotten to ourselves. I mean, when you cross that threshold or 5 or 6, we get to 9 guys out in Tama. That's our 9th game in 15 days. We went. You can't squeeze your team anymore. You can't grind them. You're just trying to tape them together and hold up. And we were, 1 goal away in a bunch of those games. We're just behind it just a little bit. But now we come back here fresh. We can get a very good, hard, focused push, and we can kind of get back to normal. And certainly, at some point, we are going to need these players to come back and play for us to give us a chance.
As important as the break is, what is that first practice like back after a long break in terms of just getting everyone back in terms of
Yeah,
setting
so the
everything back?
focus, and ours is different, right? We had 14 and 15 skaters out there where you would normally have almost 5 lines. So there'll be teams with full complement. So you're challenged in what you can do with your team. But we will push harder tomorrow than we did today. At a good pace today. Not a lot of physicality in our practice tomorrow. We'll bring some of that in and get a little heavier in our practice tomorrow, and we'll get a little more conditioning in. Keep them off the ice for day 3 so that we can have 2 more, and that will be more speed-based coming out of that. But again, we'll have somewhere between 11 and 15 guys on the ice max.
You heard the Finland report about you?
Yeah, I got a bunch of texts. Yeah, silliness. I think somebody got confused with Tuomo. There was a Panther coach on the bench. It just wasn't
Would you
me.
be interested in coaching Team Finland?
No, they got too many good coaches over in Finland. They don't need me. I'm born in Canada. I'm a U.S. citizen. I think I'll stay in Fort Lauderdale for these tournaments. It worked out just fine.
Coach, speaking of coaches, just Jamie and Miles coming back with some good
Awesome.
stories.
Yeah, really good. Great insight. Maybe more for them than anything else in a lot of ways. There's a lot to be learned by going over and coaching a different culture. And I didn't fully appreciate that till I spent my year in Russia. And there was so many different ways of handling things, different ways of doing things. What it really does, I think, is it gives you a far greater insight when we have a European player come over into what they go through to get assimilated to North America, for one. The National Hockey League is a huge learning curve. And then you've got your Florida Panther curve, because every team does something slightly differently. to have a little bit more patience with European players, because it is quite a bit different. But for Jamie with the German team, they're at a certain kind of uptick. That's a program that's getting better and better, and they will measure their success almost incrementally. They may not be able to do it with medals yet, but that's being at that part of the curve. And then for Miles with Team Sweden, that's a good hockey team. And when you leave feeling you were a goal away from potentially playing for gold, you're right there. And then Tuomo with the Finnish team, he grew up with that, but he gets to see all of the kind of the next generation of Finnish players where they're strong. I thought the Finland's first period was textbook in terms of a great coaching plan to how to beat Canada, but also incredibly difficult to do for a full 60-minute game. I mean, they spent almost everything they had to deny Canada some of their strengths, and it was world class. I mean, I think those guys were very well prepared to play, and Tuomo was part of that. Okay, guys.